Hello, everyone. Well, it's been a tough, rough couple of weeks. Let me tell you. It's been hard hearing about the war in Gaza and Israel, and it's just been awful. The Hamas started out. Let's backtrack. Hamas started out by riddling babies with bullets. They were riddled with bullets, and they cut off toddlers' heads with a sword. They cut their heads off, and they committed atrocities. The Hamas committed atrocities, and then in addition to committing atrocities, they kidnapped a bunch of people, kidnapped American citizens. They kidnapped Israeli citizens that were going to a music festival. They kidnapped a whole bunch of people and took them to Gaza. Well, what happened was that Israel was not happy about this. They were not pleased at all. So then they were about to start a ground incursion, into Gaza. But then they were halt by the U.S. Department of whatever. Probably Foreign Affairs, the Department of Foreign Affairs. That they told Israel to halt and to wait until they got permission. But publicly, Biden was saying, "Oh, we didn't tell them to stop. We left it up to them, but we're doing everything in our power to get the kidnapped people back, the people that are being held for ransom in Gaza." So they're speaking out of both sides of their mouths. First, on one hand, the Biden is saying that he's leaving it totally up to the Israelis when to invade, and that he had no influence on it whatsoever. And on the other hand, he's saying we're doing everything in our power to get the hostages back. So you can't have it both ways. Which is it, Biden? Which did you pick? I think he picked trying to get the hostages back, because of course Israel halted their incursion into Gaza and put it off, but they were still bombing, which is the worst thing they could be doing, is bombing. Because why is bombing worse than a ground incursion? Because bombing kills indiscriminately, but bombing kills lots of innocent people, whereas if you sent someone in, they would be able to track the person down that they're looking for. They killed 500 people to get to one Hamas leader. There was just one Hamas leader, and they killed 500 people to get to him. And they don't even know if they killed him, because it was just a giant crater left in the earth where those people were. Nobody knows if they killed him or not. So it was for nothing. It was bombing for nothing. If they sent in ground forces, they could hunt for these bad guys and avoid killing innocent civilians. If the civilians are indeed innocent, we keep hearing about innocent Palestinian civilians, but are they really civilians, and are they really innocent? We don't know. We don't know. We don't know if they're innocent. We don't know if they're civilians. There's no way of knowing unless you have a roster of bad guys that you have all in a row, that you can identify them and know that they're one of the bad guys. Because I'm sure facial recognition software would do that, but how are you supposed to carry a computer around with you to do the facial recognition software, right? So it's up to humans to identify these bad guys and take them out. And who knows if they would be a case of mistaken identity with somebody else. That is possible. The recent shooting in Lewiston, Maine. At first, I didn't recognize the guy that they said on the camera that they got on camera. He didn't look like the photograph they had of him. It didn't look like the same guy, and I was doubtful that it was him. But it turned out it really was him. He just looked a lot different from a different angle. He looked different. He didn't look the same from a different angle. So that's a clue to you how facial recognition software works, that it can identify people that even humans can't identify. So it's really good software to have if you can use it. But what they did during the Iraq War, during the war in Iraq, America had a deck of playing cards with the Queen of Hearts, the Ace of Spades, the Jack of Knights, or whatever. They had a playing card list of all the people that they wanted to take out that were the baddies. They had all the baddies in this deck of playing cards, and they took them all out. They took out all the guys on the deck, on the list, on the playing card deck. So that's how they identified people, and they could do the same in Israel. They could look for Hamas bad guys and put them in a playing card deck, so you recognize and remember their faces, and that might work. That might work because it worked for America. Might work for Israel too. And you're saying, oh, what about these Palestinian civilians? But yeah, didn't the Palestinian civilians accept Hamas as their leaders? And didn't the Palestinian civilians aid, abet, and give aid to these Hamas leaders? And didn't they conceal these Hamas leaders, and then they obey the Hamas leaders and refuse to go to the south? They did. They did give aid to the Hamas leaders. They did follow the Hamas leaders. They did refuse to go south. And so, because they heard there was bombing to the south, so what's the point in going south if there's still bombing going on there? So they didn't go south, and now they're in the line of fire. And of course, helping to aid and abet the Hamas leaders to escape from. Now they're letting people out of the country, and who knows if any of them are Hamas leaders. We don't know. We don't know if the people who are leaving Gaza are the Hamas leaders. We don't know. All we know is that they were allowed to pass into Egypt. That Egypt accepted them and allowed them to pass. And maybe they're all Hamas leaders for all we know. But we don't know. We don't know. So Hamas, the bad guys, there was a report that they bombed a hospital, and Israel accused another group, not Hamas, but another group of bombing the hospital. I think they're jihadists. And they bombed the hospital, and then they were blaming Israel, and they had riots in the streets. They had a whole bunch of people rioting in Syria and rioting in Yemen and rioting in other countries, carrying Palestinian flags and waving them proudly and burning U.S. and Israel flags. And they believed it. They believed that Israel bombed the hospital. I don't believe for a second that Israel bombed the hospital. I know that's not true, because if they had bombed the hospital, wouldn't they have taken credit for it? What reason do they have to want to conceal that they bombed the hospital if they did? But they said they could tell from the sound of the rocket that made this high-pitched squealing noise that it was the jihadists' bomb. So they got accused of bombing a hospital, and then they bombed a refugee camp and killed at least 500 people. That they bombed the refugee camp, but that was where they were trying to get that bad guy. His name starts with Ibrahim. It's Ibrahim that they were trying to kill. And not good that they killed a bunch of civilians, but like they said, the Hamas's modus operandi is to use human shields. They use civilians as human shields in their glorious battle against Israel. And not so glorious, because they use people as human shields. That's what they do. That's their modus operandi. So I don't know what to tell you. It's a terrible war. It's an awful, terrible war. And we'll just be glad when it's over, obviously. But it isn't over yet. It's just begun. This war has just begun. And protesters are howling at the top of their lungs. These protesters here in America are howling at the top of their lungs against Israel and in favor of the Palestinians. You know what? I knew a group. It was Women Against Military Madness. They were interested in the PLO, and a few of the members got arrested because they were involved with the PLO. They were maybe giving money to the PLO. I don't know. I don't know if they were giving money to the PLO or if they were just in communication with the PLO, but they got in a bunch of trouble, and 2 of their members got arrested for it. And of course, they went to jail very proudly, showing off, going on their way to jail. But it's just terrible what these ultra liberals will do. These ultra liberals are in favor. Ultra liberals are in favor of Hamas, and they're on the side of the Palestinians against Israel. And it's just because, and PLO was a terrorist organization. For many years when I was growing up, PLO was considered a terrorist organization. They still are. But they've sort of disappeared off the landscape, and now Hamas is in charge. And Hamas is even worse than the PLO, if that can possibly be imagined. But that's what their motive. That's what they do. They use civilians as human shields. And there's nothing that Israel can do. They have to defend their own people no matter what Hamas does. No matter what Hamas tactics they use, Israel's obligated to defend their country and their own people from harm. So if they go after Hamas, there's going to be civilian casualties, and that comes with the territory, and there's nothing any one of us can do about it. So you can complain all you want. You can cry all you want. Oh, boo-hoo, poor Hamas leaders that shot babies full of bullets, and now they're killing innocent civilians. And, oh, the poor civilians. The poor civilians that aided and abetted these monsters. I'm not going to lose any sleep over civilian casualties in this war, because they knew civilian casualties would, and now they're saying, oh, it's already genocide. Oh, it's genocide. Oh, they killed all the people. They're all dead. Everyone is dead in Gaza. It's a genocide. Oh yeah, I heard a voice in my head, and it told me, oh, genocide. Said someone that I heard the other day. They said that a voice in their head said genocide. It's not genocide yet. It's not genocide yet. You got to be kidding me. Genocide? No, it's not genocide. It's war. It's a war. There's baddies that did bad things, and they're going after those bad people, and it's not genocide. You gotta be kidding me. Genocide? I don't think so. I don't think Israel's about to commit genocide. They've been very lenient. They've let the aid trucks in, and they didn't have to let the aid trucks in because they had an enemy to destroy in Gaza. They didn't have to let the aid trucks in. They let the aid trucks in. So it's not genocide, but these crybabies are repeating whatever they hear, and they're all repeating genocide. So, no, it's not genocide. And we've got a new Speaker of the House. Did you know? We've got a new Speaker of the House. It's Mike Johnson. First of all, Scalise chickened out. He chickened out and he dropped out of the race. He didn't try again. His predecessor had to try 15 times to get elected. Scalise just quit. He dropped out. And so because he quit on us, we had to go through a big rigmarole. And then there was Jim Jordan, and no one would vote for Jim Jordan. Everyone hated Jim Jordan, and people refused to vote for Jim Jordan. So Jim Jordan quit also. He was out of there. And then there were like 7 candidates, and Mike Johnson rose to the top of the list. He was the best loved of the candidates, and he was the one who got the speakership, ultimately. I'm hoping that Mike Johnson passes a balanced budget. I'm hoping he passes a budget, and I hope he does it soon before there's a government shutdown. Or at least a stopgap measure to prevent the government from shutting down until they can put a budget together. Because they have to balance the budget. They have to write a budget for the federal government to stay open. And if the spending runs over, the spending runs over, but the budget has to be passed. So I'm hopeful that they'll pass the budget, and I'm hoping that they'll do it soon. They said that they could use a stopgap measure to keep the government open until January, and by then they should have the budget written. I'm expecting great things from Mike Johnson, and I'm hoping that he passes it. What does Biden want to do? He wants to spend $9 billion in aid to Israel, which seems reasonable, and $61 billion for Ukraine. $61 billion for Ukraine. Billion. More than you've ever seen in your entire life. And he wants to send it all to Ukraine. And give $9 billion to Israel. Well, that's a pittance. That's a pittance to give to Israel. Why aren't you giving $61 billion to Israel? Why $61 billion for Ukraine and not $61 billion for Israel, who are actual allies? There's no figuring out how Biden's mind works. He just comes up with these numbers off the top of his head, and who knows? Who knows how he comes up with these numbers? But he thinks Ukraine deserves $61 billion. I don't know. I think we've already given them more than $61 billion. We've given them more than that. And what have they done with it? They've enriched themselves, I'm assuming. So that's it. I'm Sarah Jane Alpha Wolf signing off. You guys take care and have a great week. And don't worry too much about the events in this world, because that's the way this world has always been.